Welcome to ACP, the Amazon Connect podcast. This is the show that focuses on Amazon Connect and related technologies. I'm your host, Tom Morgan, and I'm joined as usual by my co-host, AWS Solution Architect and Contact Center Consultant, Alex Baker. We are also joined today by Ajmal Mahmood, Customer Experience Director at Omningage. Find out more about Cloud Interact by visiting us at cloudinteract.io. It's time for another ACP, and I'm joined as usual by Alex, but this week we have a special guest. We're joined this week by Ajmal Mahmood, who is the Customer Experience Director at Omningage. Alex, Ajmal, it's great to have you with us.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey Tom, hey Ajmal. Yeah, good, thanks. How are you, Ajmal?
Yeah, good. Really good to be on here and chat to you guys.
We're very excited to talk to you. We're going to be talking all about building a product that's based around Amazon Connect, because I know at Omningage you've got Rocket CCaaS, which you talk about as being powered by Amazon Connect, but we're going to dig into all of that later. But first, let's kick off with just a bit about you. So you've not been on here before, so let's have an intro to Ajmal. Let's start with your background.
Yeah. So specific to the contact center industry, I've been working in that space for forever. And that journey started as a contact center agent. It was one of my first proper jobs. I worked for an insurance company. It was a long time ago. It was in the previous century. So it was green screens, F keys, no mouse, the dot matrix, wallboards, that kind of stuff. But from then on, I went into sort of work for a telco. And then I was working on switches in network management centers. And then I just fell into contact center. That happened kind of after the turn of the century. I feel so old saying all of that. But from then on, it became, migration away from older Nortel type systems to Cisco stuff that you guys know really well. Mm-hmm. And there was always that aspect of, whenever I worked in that industry, everyone always talks about, let's just move from one thing to another. And it was always a transition, and no one really used to talk about transformation. So you always went, my system's end of life, I need a new one. Here's a new one. Let's just do the same stuff again. And you ended up just lift and shift. So that went on. Well, I did that for a really long time. And then in sort of the early noughties, I remember having that conversation about how can we use data? Because, even in those older systems, you have tons of data that tells you about the behavior of customers, and how can you influence their behavior, improve their experience, but also improve the efficiency of your organization. So, but then we started talking about data, how that can influence it. And, that journey has taken me down there, talking about omnichannel, and then still struggling with people not understanding what true omnichannel is between one channel, two channels, three channels, whatever it might be. And now I've only ever worked for telcos. I worked for Omningage, I worked for Telewest before that, I worked for Cable and Wireless, Vodafone, KCOM for a while. So this is a bit of a departure for me, being at Omningage, SaaS company, but it's one of those things where it was a tipping point that I was waiting for. Because when Amazon Connect came along in, 2017? You knew it was a game changer. It might have had gaps in its functionality, but it just threw a massive grenade into the commercial structures that, like Cisco and everybody else. So so that's my journey, and that's how it's got me to here to talk about customer experience.
Wow, that's cool. Okay, that's amazing. That's cool.
It's really worth mentioning as well. So Ajmal and I have a bit of similar background, because we both worked at the same time at Cable and Wireless, which became Vodafone, and then both went over to KCOM at roughly the same time. So yeah, it's always good to catch up with Ajmal, and I know he's got loads of really interesting experience in CX.
Cool. And just not going aside from CX for a second, you've got plenty of podcast experience elsewhere, haven't you? You're a veteran to the podcast world. Tell us about that.
Well, I have a podcast. I'm a podcast co-host, and it's a Porsche specific podcast. And my co-host lives in Perth, Australia. We've never actually met face to face.
But you podcast regularly.
And
That's so cool.
Yes, so we've been doing it.
I was going to say, when do you record? Like, is it Like, because the time zone Australia is brutal. So like, do you do it like last thing at
Yeah.
night for you and first thing in the morning for him, or like how does that work?
It's a little bit of that, but sometimes I can work a slot in my diary during the day. So
Mhm.
like now, take an hour lunchtime. It's early evening for him. It's mid
Mm.
morning for me, for example. So it works. But that all started just because of I was never really a Porsche guy. But then I ended up buying a car as a bet with a friend of mine that I could go and buy a 911, the cheapest one in the country, with an MOT manual, and I could run it for a year because he's got money. He's a managing director somewhere, but he's been on the fence about it for so long. Even his wife is saying, "Just do it or shut up about it." And so I said, "I'll prove it to you." And I went and did it. And I put a post on a forum somewhere saying, "Oh, I was trying to work something out."
Mm.
And someone asked me how much I'd got it for, why I'd bought it. So I bought it without going to see it, and just got it delivered. It was off Auto Trader, and that was 5 years ago, so I still got it. It's still my everyday car. But
Amazing.
but that kind of got the attention of a couple of people who do podcasts. I guested on a couple of podcasts that were fairly big in that space, and then just ended up doing this thing with Mark. And yeah, we've had some really decent guests. We've had sort of I missed out this year because it gets you things like press pass to Le Mans and stuff like that. So ended up getting that, but I couldn't go because of family reasons and things like that. So it's an exciting thing and it's a fun hobby, but
Mm.
it's finding the time to fit everything in.
I love the approach to buying the car. It's kind of like everything that they say don't do, isn't it? Like pick the cheapest one in the list. Don't bother going to see it, and just kind of it'll be fine. Get it shipped over. I always like seeing your updates on it, and I'm also amazed that it actually seems to have turned out into a pretty good buy and has done you well. So
Very
well.
cool. All right, let's talk a bit about Omningage, which is where you work. So, what do Omningage do?
So Omningage came into existence because Ahmed, I think Alex knows Ahmed quite well, a former colleague of ours, and been around the Cisco space for a really long time. And then when Amazon Connect came along, he instantly thought, do you know what? There's something in this. And the element that will make it enterprise grade is this desktop, the agent interface, the supervisor desktop, the analytics, all of those things that create the way that the technology would be consumed by agents, by supervisors, by management. And he started thinking about it. And then he set it up in 2019, the end of. So it was specifically a SaaS company, create an agent desktop that sits over the top of Amazon Connect and make it the single pane of glass for all of the customers' applications that can then talk to each other. They all open in context, and the agent has a seamless experience, and the customer never has to repeat themselves. You make it omni-channel. So you create all of that context, the history. And the funny thing is, because I was at a workshop yesterday, and we kind of look at agents as sort of monkeys to be trained, but they bring an element to it. So normally, what does an agent do? They take in a load of information off a screen, they apply context, and they apply empathy. So if a call comes in and there's a ton of data on the screen, what we do is make sure that it's available in the right order. So if it's somebody who's come through IVR or an app and they're authenticated already, you know their intent, you know their frustration level. And then suddenly it's, if it's Alex on the phone and I'm the agent, hi, Mr. Baker, I see that you're trying to pay a bill and it's failed before and you've been in the queue for ages. I'm really sorry about that. Let's see if I can help you with that.
Got it.
Suddenly
Yeah.
someone's kind of acknowledged all of your frustrations in one hit.
Yeah.
and
It's
taken the heat
empowering
out
for
of
the
it.
agents as well, isn't it? It's providing them what they need to be better at what they do.
Such a
Absolutely.
valuable bit of customer experience, that, isn't it? So to feel like you have some idea about what I'm calling you for, and a bit of empathy straight away as soon as we're
Mm.
connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's being
You feel
heard.
heard. Yeah. Feel heard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that, is incredibly powerful. And it almost feels like, when did we start looking at that whole experience through the eyes of the agent? Because if you improve the life of the agent, and that also means the life of the agent when they're not on the phone. So,
Mm.
we can do all of these things that eliminate wrap time, that eliminate post-call work, admin, those kind of things. There's auto tagging, summarization. So it means there's no note taking, there's no, wrap up codes or anything like that, because you eliminate that time. that means that you're treating your agents like machines. So they're just moving from one thing to another, relentlessly. But at the same time, it also means that if they took 30 seconds of wrap after every call, that wrap was doing nothing. They just took a breather. Then you're still winning because you're getting accurate information, multiple layers of tagging on what the call was, and then you're giving the agent a break as well. So that was the whole sort of ethos behind it, to accelerate adoption is basically what of Amazon Connect is what Omningage do at the moment, and accelerate transformation, because you're a window into the AWS ecosystem. So when new things come along, we turn them on, we enable them in a way that the customer can consume them, prove the value, and keep using them, or just turn it off and say, actually, it's not valuable to me. So it's that accelerated adoption, accelerated transformation.
Is it something that when you've been developing the product, you seek feedback from the agents, from the supervisors about, because they're the ones that are spending the whole day in front of it and probably have some strong feelings about which of the features are or aren't useful?
Yes. So that whenever we take on a new sort of top of the mid-market or enterprise grade customer, we do a lot of sitting with agents, see how they're working, how they're consuming the technology, how they're doing workarounds. Because if you ever sit with a really experienced agent, they will work around problems so seamlessly. If you're sat there watching the screen, they'll try three things really quickly, and if they don't work, they'll settle on the third one. But to your eye, it'll just look like they've done three things. No, they haven't. They've clicked through three screens that didn't work. So that was really valuable. And what we do is we kind of take the feedback from that, we put it in a report, give it to the customer, but we also then go back when they've adopted the Omningage desktop and Amazon Connect, and then we look for iterative improvements, because our product isn't. Do you guys remember when we used to make things like, Cisco HCS and stuff like that? We'd make it live and then you just walk away, right? Because that was fixed until it was going to be upgraded, and it was going to cost you like £500,000 and take 3 months. Whereas now it's completely iterative. So when somebody comes to us and say there's a certain widget that isn't exactly what I want, I'd want it to be a bit different. And then we go away and look at it and go, actually, if I change that, will I make it better for all of my customers in that SaaS layer? So we then tweak that and roll it out and send out a message to all of our partners and customers saying we've made these improvements this month in the latest sprints. And then we put it out on LinkedIn saying, this is what we've done. So it's that iterative, continual transformation, but it also means that you're not leaving behind any applications. So existing applications still open in context, still share information between them. And it means that it's that you're not sat there months and months and months and months with an old clunky solution while you're waiting for the new one to be set up. It's still accelerating the adoption of a new technology, but it's putting you in a new place. It's like taking you from a old bumpy road and putting you on a super smooth surface where you're moving really fast.
Gotcha. And I guess you've taken some of those learnings and put them into Rocket CCaaS. And we should talk about Rocket and what it is and why you decided to build it, and why it's different as well. Because I think looking across the market, I can't see anything that's exactly quite like it at the moment, I don't think.
Rocket was based from a lot of feedback from people in AWS, potential customers, partners, and it was. I totally get it. The conversation when people have it with a potential customer who's used to the old world of doing things is complicated. The Amazon Connect in itself is not massively complicated to understand, but when every little thing that you want has a new name for it as a service or something, gadget, widget, or something running in the background, and people are talking about, well, I have to turn that on, and that's going to cost me a bit of money, and then there's a whole thing about people are scared of bill shock. So people are always scared of it. It's too complicated. I don't know what I'm paying for. It's going to be a huge amount of money. And that's simply the way that it's being presented to a customer. It's not to do with the solution. So what we did was we thought, well, let's just put it together under the banner of Rocket. And what we'll do is we'll put some numbers around the consumption of it. So, if they're a customer who has X amount of minutes per agent per month, X amount of digital interactions, we kind of put them into a category and then say, we can put you onto Amazon Connect. Here's your fixed amount that you're going to pay per agent per month. And guess what? If you fall into one of these three brackets of complexity, in your existing solution that you want to move across and simplify, then we'll do that for a small. So there's no commercial or technical barrier to adoption. So we put a small number, or a smallish number against that adoption. And then it makes the conversation is really simple. It's almost like picking it off a menu. You say, these are the things that I want, and this is what I want it by.
And do you find that simplification, is that aimed at a particular target market in terms of like size of customer or anything like that? Do you find it works better in different sizes or what?
It works with the SMB market is the ideal sort of sweet spot for it. But what always happens is people are drawn to Rocket because of that simplistic message that it has. But what they do is for the first and this is quite funny because when we have those conversations with people, lots of people are attracted to it. We got lots of, leads through partners and whatnot. But when the conversation starts and we talk in those simple terms of adopting all of those different channels, those different gadgets, widgets, whatever it might be that gives the customer something, we don't talk about it as in it's contact lens, it's an S3 bucket, it's whatever it might be, Amazon Q. We talk about what they're going to get. They're going to get agent assist, they're going to get omnichannel, they're going to get
sticks and solving problems, right? That you're talking
exactly
those terms rather than the tech. That's interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So, but what happens is most of the time that the conversation started about Rocket, but then the customer, well, potential customer has gone down a route where they go, actually, I want something way more complicated than I had before. So then we say, that's going to fall outside of Rocket. Do you want to just talk about an Omningage deployment?
Okay.
An Omningage deployment.
Yeah. Okay. So it's, yes, you've got both answers there. You've got the, like, if it's simple, great. If not, yes, we also do this. Yeah.
Okay, and the great thing about that is they get an understanding of, hang on, so if I've got that level of usage in terms of minutes, digital interactions, whatever it might be, and concurrent agents, they instantly think, hang on, I've now got an idea of what I'm going to be paying per agent per month. Even though with Omningage, the more bespoke deployment, you're not going to be charging me in that way. But I now think I have an understanding of, I don't need to go through the calculator, because everybody sort of pulls their hair out when they hear about the Amazon pricing calculator, which isn't actually that bad. But this way, someone's actually said to them, here's a number that I'm going to put against it per agent per month. And they suddenly go, actually, I kind of know what I'm going to pay now.
Is it possible to have an entire conversation with a customer who probably are like a smaller type of customer? Can they completely transact without ever mentioning Amazon Connect? Is that, like, you know what I mean? Like, I use Rocket as my contact center solution, and you just talk in those terms. And is it possible to have that whole conversation without ever really mentioning Amazon Connect?
We tend not to do that. And mostly because you want to know that it's powered by Amazon, it's powered by Amazon Connect. And when, you just have to scratch the surface a little bit on Amazon Connect and you go, whoa, look at the pace of development. And you want that credibility behind it to say, it's not just a tin pot thing that we've put together. It's based on some tried, trusted, with an incredible roadmap for next year. I think there's 200 plus features coming next year. And the fact that we have a really good relationship with AWS, we do beta testing for certain new features. We're certified in multiple different areas. So that brings a level of credibility that the customer can be reassured that it's not something that's going to go away.
I get it.
Quite reassuring in terms of reliability, and like you say, it's not a tin pot thing that there's two people in a shed supporting. It's got the full backing of AWS.
Yeah, even if you never use those features, it's almost like your Porsche, and you have Porsche racing, right? And there's the investment there in motorsport and stuff like that, and that feeds through it to the car. Like, and some of that is marketing, and some of that is real, right? And there's that you're buying that experience as well, and that belief that some of that goes into the car, whether that's true or not. Or like a Mercedes and the Mercedes F1 team, right? Those two things, you buy the Mercedes, but with the pedigree of the F1 team behind it.
Yeah, exactly. So they do the, 1 million miles an hour development, and sometimes they come up with a nugget that you go, hang on, that's going to apply. I think ABS and things like that, were created in Formula One and then ended up on road cars. So it's that kind of thing where Amazon is going 1 million miles an hour and just literally, I think one of the guys there said it's like a fire hose of stuff. And people like us are there grabbing the stuff out of the fire hose and going, right, What can we make available to somebody? Because when everybody's looking at it and thinking, oh my God, there's stuff coming out all over the place. What am I looking at? What am I going to use? What value is it to me? And we have it in a roadmap in product backlog in the order that we think our customers will find most valuable.
What about sort of, because you've got Rocket and you've got the Omningage agent and supervisor desktop. What is there in the way of sort of feature parity? Is it sort of Rocket a slightly cut down version? How does that work?
It's still the same. So it's got the agent desktop and the supervisor desktop. And obviously you get all of the features that, you still get team monitoring, you get sentiment analysis, you get all of those things. But, there's things that you can look at and say, well, do you want transcription? Do you want certain services that would increase your consumption? But in terms of just pure features, it's pretty much on a par. It's more the wrap that goes around it from a commercial point of view, from a PS point of view. So it's a known quantity. If you were to adopt it, you go, I'm going to take tier 1, which maybe has a £5,000 setup fee, is £50 per month per agent, whatever it is. We can talk through the numbers with any potential customer, and it means that the conversation is simplified. It's more about that, but also the Omningage offering is more. We work with partners such as yourselves, where you might go and set up the Amazon Connect instance, and we then come and set up the desktop that goes over the top. And our partner then has the recurring revenue of the support contract, and we just have a bums on seats kind of thing. And the customer gets the benefit of that SaaS product where it's just, new features are being enabled all the time. And if they're a big enough enterprise grade customer, they can influence that roadmap. If they come along and say, I really want this thing, and a lot of times the bigger the organization, the harder it is for them to secure a bit of budget for something specific. So we might say, do you know what? It's on our roadmap. Why don't we just reorganize it so you get the benefit of that sooner? But in terms of Rocket, obviously we do all of the build in the background of Amazon Connect and just the complete package.
Yeah, sounds like a pretty compelling offering. It's all the goodness of the Omningage desktop, but really easy to categorize as this is what you get for the £50 a month or whatever it might be.
Yeah. What's that onboarding experience like for customers? Do you transact through Marketplace? What work do they need to do on their side if they want to start using this?
It's through Marketplace. So, and there's a whole thing about where their Amazon Connect, have they already got an account? Is it going to say an hour? So we work with partners where we set it up in an account where the customer can consume it. And it's from their point of view, they can just transact through the Marketplace. And it means that if they've got an existing account, it's really easy. And then when it comes to the setup, because the target market will most likely have a simpler setup, it's much easier to get to a point where you've got things like, call flows, what the system requirements that we need, you'd be able to send them a spreadsheet, say, can you fill in all of this stuff about your existing environment, what you do? And then we come back and say, well, actually, there's a lot of things that you're doing simply because your old system needs them done that way. Why don't we streamline them in the first instance and do this? Now, the problem with that is, and the bigger the organization, the more pronounced that becomes, is people start comparing reports they run on the old world against the new world. So, for example, if you set up a Lexbot and you start those low-level repeat interactions that you just hand off to the Lexbot, for example, it means that more complicated queries come into the contact center, and people then look at the old metric, which is average handle time. And they say, well, why is my average handle time gone up? But if you look at repeat calls and customer satisfaction, it's probably gone up loads. Satisfaction's gone up loads, but the repeat calls have come down because the agents are spending more time on those complicated queries. That's what the agent's there for, right? To deal with the stuff that automation can't handle or self-service. So it's that's the thing that we have to prepare a customer for, to look at different metrics now. Don't start looking at the old metrics in the old world. Look at something different and also, people are now competing on service rather than just, really quick turnaround of interaction.
Yeah, definitely. And it feels like people are competing on agent experience as well, like the experience for agents inside a contact center, not just customer experience as well. Really
yeah, because the the cost for agent churn is huge. And for us to be able to build sort of employer loyalty through technology and through software is huge. Now, it's, I'm not saying that's something that we do or we consider. What we consider is the experience. We look at a lot of things through the lens of the agent and the supervisor, especially when it comes to things like communication between, Amazon Connect doesn't do communication between a supervisor and agent, for example. You can't do chat, you can't do voice between them. So we've enabled that. If an agent is struggling, you can set a sentiment threshold. So if the sentiment crashed on a call, you can set a threshold or an alert to a supervisor who can then go and listen in. Now, the worst thing for an agent is your supervisor barging in on a call, right? That's got to be the worst thing. And for the customer. But if they're able to send you a message, they know you're struggling and they can send you a message saying, do you know what, perhaps you should say this or use this tool or some kind of advice or experience.
Or even just knowing they're listening, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've all been there. Like, if you worked in contact centers, where you've just got this customer who's gone off the deep end and just like, you just want somebody there to be like, I'm hearing this too. Don't worry about it. Like, we'll sort this out. This is not on you. This is 100% the customer, but just know that I'm listening. Yeah,
exactly. So there's some kind of reassurance there that you're not just an automaton sat in a massive building taking call after call after call. And I think there's value in that. And if you can build brand and employer loyalty within your employees, your contact center agents, then you're building more experience. And then the tools that you're enabling get better because of the way that the more experienced agents use them. And, even with Amazon Q and things like that, hang on, that was a really useful article. That was a really useful bit of information it gave me in real time. And then it means that you've got much happier customers. So if you make your agent happier, more efficient and more knowledgeable, but also not impair their mental health on the way as well, you're kind of winning on all fronts.
Yeah,
is how we kind of see it.
I'm curious how things went kind of with AWS building this out. And the reason I sort of say that is, Amazon Connect is in some ways sold as being simple to use, right? Simple to turn on and simple to configure. And then so there's that sort of, is there a perception from AWS that maybe this is unnecessary from you, or have they just generally left you to get on with it, or have they given you boundaries? Or I'm just curious to know what that experience has been like.
Well, do you know what? AWS have been nothing but good to us. But at the same time, there's an honesty between us that, one day they might just come and eat our lunch.
Of course. Which is the partner dance, right?
But what we've done is, because we've accelerated the adoption process, so, we're doing a good thing, because if we win, Amazon wins, right? But there's, and we're always competing to stay ahead of them. So in some sense, so when they throw out all of these amazing new features kind of day after day after day, we pick and choose what we just surface to a customer, and the customer isn't then doing a ton of work behind the scenes to try and work out, well, what does it mean for me? So if I give you an example, Amazon Cases, which we've introduced, there's customers that we're talking to who have multiple case management solutions or don't have effective case management. And what we say to them is, do you know what? Do you want to just do a proof of concept? And why don't we just take one defined journey, make that live within Amazon Cases, and suddenly you've got something that's in the ecosystem. It's all connected together, and you're kind of paying per task, per case. And then when you take into account and you say, well, actually, my case management solution that I have now has a massive contract associated with it, which is coming up in 6 months, then you go, well, why don't we just grow this out? So when it comes to renewal, you don't have to renew. And if it's, let's say you're managing complaints, for example, if you reduce your complaints, you're paying less. So there's multiple incentives to take on a really easily consumable service that's available in the application that they already use. But also there's development. We can do gadgets, widgets, all of these things, to bring online really quickly.
Being able to do that, the sort of small proof of concept and increment on it and then bring it into live, it's such a powerful approach time and time again. When we worked back on Cisco technology, it was so much more cost prohibitive and time prohibitive to even think about doing things like that.
Yeah, and when you think you've got to get the hardware, you've got the licenses, and they're perpetual, right? So it's not something that you can get and then it's sunk cost. You're not going to get that back. And the thing, Tom, I think you touched on it earlier, is how do we work with customers? We try and work in a similar way to we're problem solvers at heart. We like a defined problem, but the thing when you look at how AWS work, the working backwards methodology, where you define perfection, which is an ever-changing definition for each and every customer. And then you go, well, actually, our starting point is really important as well. So if we adopt and we iterate to perfection, or transformation is the journey without end, right? It's continual. So if you say, well, actually, we're going to adopt really quickly, and then every evolutionary step that we take has a problem statement associated with it, then you've kind of every improvement you make, you know what's that's saving you in terms of customer friction, agent frustration, and financially what it's costing you. So you've got to look through it through all those lenses, and a problem statement is a good way to take that and prioritize that work.
We should talk about AI because it's 2024. So looking specifically, I guess, at Rocket, have you brought in some of those AI things that are in Amazon Connect at the moment, some of the Gen AI summarization stuff, or are you doing your own, or are you just waiting and watching to see what happens?
So from an AI point of view, we tend to, as much as possible, stay within the AWS ecosystem. It's easy. For us, it's easy to leverage those services, make them available, and they all work together really well. So, for Agent Assist, we use Amazon Q, where we use summarization and auto tagging. And we're now going to start looking at creating a quality manager desktop for Amazon QM. So it'll be automated evaluations for 100% of interactions for 100% of your agents. And, that's a game changer, right? That's huge. Because if you're a big enterprise, you've gone from kind of 0.5% of manual evaluations to 100%. And then and it depends what type of organization you're working with. If they turn around and go, that's brilliant, I can get rid of all my quality managers, or they can look at it and go, oh my God, that's going to be so much trending data that's going to come out of that. I'm not going to know what to do with it. So there's two ways of looking at it. But the Gen AI thing, it's overused, right? So when we used to talk about just AI and not Gen AI, it was you thought 30, 40 years ago, you thought that's Terminator, right? That's Skynet. And then people kind of dumbed it down because you got machine learning and AI. Is that the same thing?
AI was always what you called it before you actually knew what it was going to do. Like once it actually got an application, it gets its own name, like spell check, or like it's AI and what, you know what I mean? Like AI is this kind of catch-all before we've really worked out what we're going to do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just that it was almost like we'd found this thing called AI, but now we're looking for an application for it. And it's only now that it's accelerated to the point where, but a lot of the times people think AI, Gen AI, all of these things can layer over all of the different disparate systems that I have in my organization, and I can just hide them under a layer of Gen AI. And it doesn't work like that. So for us, we enable it and we use it as and when it's appropriate. We don't try and create things, because if you create your own, let's say, agent assist solution, or Gen AI driven, some kind of solution that sits within our application set, it's costing you the same amount to run it if one agent uses it or 10,000 agents use it. But if you're just consuming one that Amazon have created, you're just paying as more and more agents come onto it. So, so from that point of view, yes, Gen AI is now, for the first time, and AI in general is starting to deliver results, but they're not massive results yet. And it's mostly because you have to have your own sort of ecosystem of other applications that all talk to each other. And, not everything is cloud native yet. And I'm always reminded of the meme. You've seen Wolf of Wall Street, haven't you?
Yeah.
Where Leonardo DiCaprio says to that guy in the audience, sell me this pen. And the guy's saying things like, oh, it's a great pen, this, that, whatever. But in the meme, the guy says, this pen has Gen AI. And it's that kind of thing, when you go, yeah, but it's got Gen AI. People need to, when it's such an overused phrase that people forget.
Yeah.
You know,
When
you've only
everything
got
has Gen
3
AI,
months.
nothing has Gen AI, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And it's that same thing about omnichannel when we used to talk about omnichannel back in the day. And so many people still don't know fully what that means. And to me, you know, you can have two channels. You could have voice and chat, for example, or voice and SMS, and they could be omnichannel. And all that needs to happen is for you to be able to, as a customer, shift channel mid-transaction without having to repeat yourself or identify yourself again. And
Mm.
the thing is, I now think without summarization, how is that possible? Because you're shifting between people as well, agents. So if you're on a voice and you shift to SMS or vice versa, 9 times out of 10, you'll be shifting to a different person.
Mm.
So summarization didn't exist. How was the agent getting the full context really quickly? And it's
Yeah.
that thing about, it goes back to, you know, what we think of agents and the sole thing that it's going to come down to that they do is absorb an amount of information in the right order, find the context of what's about to happen, apply that context with the right empathy. And that's it. That's going to be the domain of the agent.
Yeah. It's really, really interesting. We could talk about this all day. And in fact, we should maybe have you back to carry on talking about it. But for today, I think we should bring this episode to an end. Thanks, Alex. And big thank you, Ajmal, as well, for telling us about Omningage, telling us about Rocket, CCaaS, how you built a product on top of Amazon Connect, and your thoughts on AI as well. Really, really interesting. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Be sure to subscribe in your favorite podcast player. That way you won't miss it. Whilst you're there, we'd love it if you would rate and review us. And as a new podcast, if you have colleagues that you think would benefit from this content, please let them know. To find out more about how Cloud Interact can help you on your contact center journey, visit cloudinteract.io. We're wrapping this call up now, and we'll connect with you next time.